Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Okay, good to have you here. We got Coach Susan as well. How are you doing out there in Kentucky?
Hello, Luke. Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing very well. I'm glad to have you on the call, and we've got Larry Osborne joining us as well. Hey, Larry, how are you?
Hi, Luke. Doing well, recovering from our American Patriot Award.
Oh, how did that go?
Very well. We had a full house at in the Hilton Hawaiian Village, big event. We did very well. It
Oh,
was good.
fantastic. I'm
We
glad to
did
hear that.
Gary Roughhead and a local contractor by the name of Jerry Majka. So
Very nice. Well, I know that all the Navy Leaguers out there in Hawaii have been very active, not only on that award ceremony, but also helping out the community after those terrible wildfires that
Right.
occurred. So
right.
I can't even imagine what all you folks have been going through out there.
Well, not a lot we can do. A big impact on Maui, not much of an impact here on Oahu. But
Okay,
you're right. Everybody's contributing some way.
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. We've got a few other folks. Jim Semerad is joining us. And of course, our friend Sinclair Harris.
I wish
Okay,
I
they're
was,
up.
Hey, Bill, good to see you.
Hey,
Was that Coach Susan with a question?
no, I was just going to say, I wish I was on Oahu.
Yeah,
everybody does.
Maybe not when you pay taxes and buy a house.
I've heard that's pretty tough. Yeah, maybe just for a quick vacation.
A big barrier to entry here.
Sink, welcome, and John Caskin, welcome as well.
Okay, looks like you can hear me this time, I hope.
Oh, we've got you, John. For now, that is. We'll see what happens, 15 minutes
Luke,
into
do
this
you hear
meeting.
me?
I've got
Can
you,
you hear me?
Bill.
Okay.
I've got you, Bill. Is Marilyn going to be joining us today, or will you be taking notes for her?
Yeah, she'll be right in here in a minute.
Okay,
The
no,
mic
take it.
works.
Let her take her time. That's not a problem at all. Just wanted to double check.
wanna
Hey, Ed,
see-
how are you doing?
Fine, Luke. Yourself?
Doing well. Doing well. Thank you. Well, we'll give folks a few more minutes to join us.
Luke, we put out an all points bulletin in the region to support the Coast Guard Parity Act.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I know that you've been very involved in that, Bill, and so has Marilyn. And I know that a lot of folks on this call have immediately taken action when we sent out that alert. Again, for anyone who's not tracking, and I don't know if that actually is anyone on this call, we are very, very much trying to get that Pay Our Coast Guard Act passed before any
Right.
potential government shutdown. We're going to talk a little bit about the state of the spending bills that are still kind of
Good.
sitting in Congress. So we can't say anything for certain, but at this moment, I think most folks would agree that it doesn't look great up there on the Hill. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So we definitely want to get our Coast Guard paid in the event of a government shutdown, and so of course that's what we're taking action on now. We've got Bill James joining us. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Greetings, Luke.
How are things up north? Is the weather any better for you guys, or is it still pretty warm?
Well, I'm on the left bank. I'm over in San Diego right now.
Oh, disregard. I know exactly what the weather's like over there. You're enjoying some nice sunny weather.
There's another Chamber of Commerce day here, yes.
Oh, good, good. We've got Juan Len joining us. Juan, welcome. Good to have you here.
Okay, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And Marilyn is joining us. Hello, Marilyn. Good to see you.
Hey, Luke, it's good to see everybody. It seems like it's been a long time, hasn't it? Doesn't it seem that way? A long time since we had our last meeting?
It does feel like it's been a little while. Yeah, I would agree with that.
We missed one weekly update.
Yeah, that's true. I have to make sure that I get somebody to put that out when I'm out of town. I'm going to have to task somebody on this call with that, but we'll come back to that. We've got Jim Moffett with us now. Jim, are you here?
I am here, but I'm mobile.
Okay. All right. Well, Jim, be careful while you're driving. I assume you're driving and not flying. For anyone who doesn't know, Jim flies as well. So whichever one you're doing, please be careful on that phone.
Right. Well, today is actually parked because
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
it's still mobile, but we're parked.
Okay. Well, Jim, actually, if you don't mind, I had one thing to add to the agenda before we get started. There's actually a young woman on the call today. Her name is Sasha Broom. She is the intern for the Legislative Affairs Department for this fall semester. She's coming to us from Howard University. She has a stellar GPA, tremendous background. She's taking 7 classes this semester, which is about 6 more classes than I usually took a semester. So very, very impressive background. And she's interested in going into foreign affairs. Sasha, if you're on the line, maybe you could just say hello to everybody.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Sasha Glassbroom. I'm excited
So-
to
Hi,
work with
Sasha.
everyone.
So Sasha might be in touch with some of you as she starts working on her semester project. As I think many of you know, over the course of a semester, we usually ask our interns to put together a white paper focused on something related to the maritime realm, but also something that they find particularly interesting. It could be drones or relations between maritime nations, whatever the case may be. So as she's working on that, she might reach out to a few of you to get a little bit more information. But, you know, we'll see. I just want to make sure to introduce her to everyone. Jim, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, well, fine. We're just going to go through the agenda then, unless there's any other announcements, or if anybody has any questions or want to talk about things other than the agenda, we can do that at the end. Although I have to say that I need to depart at 4:30. Again, conflicting things to do. So going to the congressional update, spending bills. I guess from what I'm reading, the House has come up with some ideas that nobody else likes. So who's on there? Who wants to talk about the spending bills?
I'll jump in there, but I know we've got a couple other folks that might have some things to say as well. So here's the latest that I'm tracking, and this seems to be updating on almost an hourly basis. For example, just earlier today, just a few hours ago, the House tried to advance defense spending bill again. And once again, it had enough defectors that it was not able to move that bill forward. So the defense spending bill is still kind of languishing in limbo at the moment. We have 12 days left to avoid a government shutdown, not 12 business days, 12 days. And that timeline is pretty rough. The latest that we are tracking is that the House GOP is looking to tee up a continuing resolution that would keep the government funded for 1 month as they continue to negotiate. I'm sorry, was there a comment? Okay, I'll go on. So that continuing resolution would be really along partisan lines. It includes a number of provisions that Democrats are not interested in supporting. This means 2 things. Number one, if the House is able to pass it, it likely will not get very far with the Democratic-controlled Senate. So it's possible the House will put out their own bill, the Senate will put out their own bill, and then we could still end up going into shutdown because both sides will just say, well, how come the other side doesn't want to negotiate? We put out a bill. So both sides might be kind of putting out their own kind of bill that is not going to meet in the center. The second thing that it means is that the House is going to require all of its caucus, the House GOP that is, to pass their particular bill. And thus far, we have not seen that is likely to happen. There are still as many as 15 potential defectors on this GOP, primarily GOP continuing resolution. And so it is possible that even this, bill just within that conference is not going to move forward. So we still have to see what happens there. Now, one thing that I have been reading recently is that if GOP hardliners are the ones that kind of sink this bill that Speaker McCarthy is trying to put forward, that might give him an out to work with perhaps a few moderate Democrats or something to get something across the finish line. He might have a little bit more leeway to be able to say, listen, I did everything to appease my caucus. If there's only a handful of holdouts, because that's all it takes. Remember, he has a very slim majority. Look, if this half a dozen or a dozen folks really don't want to go along with it, I am willing to work with just a handful of moderate Democrats to make something happen. So that's a possibility. Getting towards the end here, folks. The Senate was working on kind of a minibus of 3 particular spending bills that was going to be agriculture, transportation, and VA/military construction. That was supposed to move forward over the objections of Senator Ron Johnson. However, the last I saw, the Senate is actually not trying to push anything before the House moves. They're going to let the House move first and see what happens. So might not be anything really coming down the pike from the Senate just yet as well. That's what I'm tracking right now. All eyes are on the House. And again, if they cannot pass this kind of party line vote, then maybe there will be a chance that there's some negotiation between the two parties to pass something else. That's where we are. Does anyone have any questions, or would any of our other Congress watchers, such as Scott Sunder or John Kaskin, like to mention anything?
Hey, Luke, what would happen if McCarthy gets fired? Is there anybody, I heard on the news area last night that there's really nobody waiting in the wings in the GOP to take his job.
So that's why he feels secure. And in fact, during a recent conference, during a recent lunch, Republican lunch, he basically challenged folks to try and remove him. Now, bear in mind, one of the concessions that he made to gain his speakership was to allow a very, very low bar for setting up a vote to remove him. And so that could cause, some lost time. I'm sure he doesn't want that, and it certainly doesn't look good for him. But you're absolutely right. If there's a lot of talk about replacing him, who is going to replace him? And at this moment, I don't think there's anyone waiting in the wings, as you just mentioned, Scott. Bill James, did you have a question or a comment?
The only thing I'll just say this. So I spoke with my U.S. Senator, Senator Klobuchar, about this very topic 2 days ago. And I would agree with you. Their position in the Senate is they're standing pat. They're standing pat until the House CR or proposal comes over. The Senate is in a little bit, well, actually in a fairly different political makeup, because they actually can walk across the aisle and have a civil conversation with each other, unlike in the House of Representatives. So, and I would agree with you. Kevin basically told his caucus, if you want to blow my brains out, go right ahead. We'll see where that gets you. So I did ask this of Amy. I said, if you had to put a percentage on a government shutdown, what would you say? And she said, it's hard for me to make that, because it's really dependent on the House, but it's a 50-50 go, no go right now as we're sitting here. And that has implications, obviously 1.2 million workers. The Coast Guard doesn't get paid because they're inside a TSA. Believe it or not, the Coast Guard is not deemed essential workers, unlike the Department of Defense and the TSA and the FAA and so forth. So it's a 50-50 coin toss on the next 11 days. And my belief is they will shut it down. I don't think Kevin can get this across the line. And that'll be his great test.
Well, Bill, I certainly appreciate you giving us the insight from Senator Klobuchar. I mean, she certainly has a firm understanding of how things work in Congress. And I would mention that unfortunately, it is quite possible that we are heading towards a government shutdown. Now, I know that nobody wants that, and that certainly includes the GOP as we're going into the next big election. So maybe there can be enough pressure on a few members of that more to the right kind of caucus to get them to come on board with a larger Republican caucus to put something together that could actually pass. But this is speculation at this point. I don't know if that's going to happen. I know that just Speaker McCarthy is in a tough spot. He can only afford a few defections, and he's got a few folks that seem very willing to defect, and that's unfortunately the situation that's going on in the House.
Yeah, there are 4 U.S. congressional representatives that said there's a proposal for a CR by Donalds out of Florida. And they have stipulated, they have gone online and said it is dead on arrival in the House. So the comment by Matt Gaetz was, it could be the greatest CR in history, and we won't vote for it.
Well,
That's what
there you go. I mean, that says pretty much all you need to know.
Luke, there's another item. I saw the statement of administration position on the defense appropriation bill, if it had passed the House. And it's got some poison pills for the Senate. So, for example, having to do with the abortion, funding for abortions and a few other things. So it specifically underlines that the president would veto it if it was passed by the House and accepted by the Senate, which it won't be. So even if you do get appropriations bills passed by the House, they would have to be conferenced with the Senate, and then trying to conference with these differences of opinion will get you in the same situation that we're here for every single appropriations bill. So it looks pretty bleak.
I just want to clarify one thing that John mentioned, okay? And I got to call this out. The federal government is not funding abortions. Okay, that is an inaccurate statement. And we need to be very careful with our language here. For
Well,
members
John,
of the armed forces that
Bill,
cannot receive
perhaps
health
you
care
could
and
be more-
transportation in their location.
Bill, I'm sorry you broke up a little bit. You could be more precise. So what is it that the Republicans object to? You don't know?
Well, I do know. I know exactly what it is. And I don't know if we
tell us,
want to
please.
take the time in this meeting because it's not on the agenda. I do not want to go off the rails on the agenda. If you
Yeah,
want to add it for,
Bill, if
For later
you don't
discussion.
mind, and I do apologize.
I would agree.
I
would agree.
If you don't mind, I do apologize for interrupting you, but let's just stick to the general concept of what John Kaskin just mentioned, which is that there are some aspects in a potential House defense spending bill which will be highly controversial, and that's in a way putting it lightly,
Correct.
when it gets to the Democratic-controlled Senate. And so
Correct.
any type of conference, we hope that they would be able to reconcile the differences, but they might be so far apart that even then we won't be able to get agreement between both chambers.
Agreed.
And so John Kaskin's definitely right to point that out. John, actually, speaking of you, if you don't mind, I was hoping you could give folks an update. We do have a bit of good news as we talk about all this gloom and doom. As you all know, we have been working very hard for the past 2 years to get Congress to authorize a national maritime transportation strategy and then to fund it and have it developed by an FFRDC, federally funded research and development center. And it looks like that process is moving forward. John Kaskin, if you could tell us a little more.
Certainly. Thank you. In the FY 2023, the NDAA, Section 3542 provides authorization for the Department of Homeland Security and Transportation to contract with an FFRDC to do a study that would provide input for those departments in conjunction with the U.S. Transportation Command to develop a national maritime strategy, which some people consider a misnomer, including a professor at the Navy War College who wrote an article on it. It's really a national maritime transportation strategy. So that provided an authorization for those agencies, but there was no funding appropriated for it. However, the Maritime Administration, through reprogramming, has come up with $2 million to do that effort. And it's primarily because there are so many job openings, or I say unfilled jobs at the Maritime Administration at the headquarters, that they could reprogram that amount of money to pay for that study plus another one on the tanker security program, because there's the tanker security program has been authorized to go to 20 tankers. And I think the Senate came up with appropriations for that. The House did not. It would have to be a conference issue. But the issue is that the amount of money that they're being paid, $6 million, is inadequate to attract more ships, or even to possibly keep the ones that they have. So they commissioned a study, which is critical if they really want that program to work. In any case, MARAD is probably at least 20% has unfilled billets. So if anybody knows anybody who has the desire to work for the Maritime Administration, they may even have billets remote. You might want to consider it because if they're in the maritime business. In any case, so they came up with the money. They did go out to various FFRDCs, and they selected the Center for Naval Analysis and made an announcement last Tuesday that they had been selected. It was a little bit faster than what CNA expected. I'm a senior fellow at CNA, and I'll be providing them some advice, basically as a graybeard, to help them along, since I'm not really interested in doing real work anymore. But so it is.
Don't tell that to the Maritime Policy Committee.
So they're really, so they're preparing to get started. I probably will meeting with the leadership team for that study in the next week or so, and they'll start embarking. And they have. They were supposed to actually finish the study a year after the authorization bill had passed, but now we're already about 9 months since that, so it's going to obviously be late. But it's a good start. I'm very happy they found the money for it. It is a very comprehensive study. That's why we asked for $2 million for it. It's supposed to look at shipbuilding. It's supposed to look at the maritime manpower issues. It's supposed to look at the ships for economic and national security. How many do we need for what purposes, and develop programs that will be, let's say, more operative than the current ones, which frankly have not really stemmed the decline of both the shipbuilding industry or the number of ships under U.S. flag. So we're very pleased that it's ongoing, and but we've got another year probably to see what they're going to come up with, and then we can make some determinations and within the Navy League on how we support their recommendations, assuming that if this time they can actually get their recommendations out of the administration. The whole reason this whole study is being given to an FFRDC is because when the administration tried to put together this maritime strategy based on legislation that was passed in 2014, they came up in 2020 with, or finally after a lot of iterations, a report that had like 8 goals and 29 objectives and no priorities, no funding, and said we need to come back in a year to give you more detail than they ever did. So Congress got really pissed, and that's what resulted in this language to have somebody else do the work as an independent entity. And so maybe there's a chance that we actually will see something. Whatever it's going to be, it's going to cost money. And given the environment we're living right now, that's going to certainly be a struggle. But unless you quantify what the problem is, which is what the study will do, hopefully to meet a requirement which it can quantify, then you're certainly not going to have a chance in Congress trying to fix the problem. Because if the administration doesn't want to, Congress can take independent action, but they need some guidelines on what to go by, and that's what this study can potentially do. That's it. Subject to question.
Okay. Hey, thanks, John. Nope. Real quickly, I'd like to get an update. Let's jump to number 3. Where are we on congressional, on Coast Guard pay? I have to tell you, I have seen a few things on both LinkedIn and Facebook of people talking about it and advocating for it and pointing out the problem. And I don't think it was us, if somebody else that was doing a Right to Your Congressman about it, I think. We haven't put that out yet, have we?
Yes, we have. So we have created
Well, that was ours
a
then.
rapid response email campaign. I would not be
That was ours.
surprised if MOA or somebody else is also doing something like that.
Okay, so I think, so is there any other update other than we have it out? We want all of our people to try and respond.
Well, so I'll just
So-
mention, I'll just mention a couple of things very quickly. If you have not responded to that campaign, which is up on the Quorum Action Center right now, navyleague.quorum.us, the campaign is co-sponsor the Pay Our Coast Guard Act. If you've not responded to that, please do. Again, all you got to do is go to that page and click submit, and it'll go directly to your member of the House and also your 2 senators. Please share that with your councils. We did send out a Navy League wide email, so I think pretty much all of our members received an email, but who knows, maybe some of them went to a junk folder or something. So please let your councils know about this. I would also mention for folks that participated in the Hill Surge, if you have built relationships with various offices, you have staff members or members of Congress that you've spoken with maybe once or twice in the past 2 Hill Surges, please go ahead and send a personalized email to them. In other words, we have this form email that goes out as a result of this online campaign. Please go ahead and send out a personalized email to some of these offices that you've spoken with in the past and just say, hey, I know that you rely on the Navy League as kind of a thought leader on maritime issues. I know that we've kept you updated on a lot of things in the past. Now we'd really like to bring this to your attention, especially over the next week or so when it might be imperative that we move something like this forward. And this brings me to the last thing I want to mention. There is some talk that I've heard in the Senate from some of our contacts over there that they might try to include Coast Guard pay in a bill that includes a few other things related to military and some items that they really want to get funded before a potential shutdown. If that's the case, they'll let us know and we'll kind of shift focus to that particular bill, basically telling Congress, listen, get this across the finish line ASAP. We still support the Pay Our Coast Guard Act because it will fix this issue for all future shutdowns. But for right now, if they are able to lump in Coast Guard pay with some other things and try and get that across the finish line in the next week or so, we're going to shift focus very quickly to supporting that bill just to make sure that during this potential shutdown, they get paid. Any questions on that?
No, and let me say for those who are region presidents on our call here, in our region president has arranged, and we're following up. We're actually going to send that same email to all of our regions and on where we have the leadership emails and dig down into it. So it doesn't hurt to send them again. So if you've got if your region, or you can talk to your region president, I would urge you to have the region president also forward that Coast Guard pay thing. So I've got to go. Luke can run it. If you got any questions from the volunteer side, John, I point John to be my sub here at committee, and I got to run. Thank you, guys. See you later.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So we actually only have 2 other quick things, and then we'll open it up with for questions. Excuse me, and that is simply the grassroots training. So next week at this time, please remember that Scott Sund is going to be telling us about artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is a very, very important topic, but just so you know, Scott is going to boil it down to a level that we can understand. It is important that we understand some of the strategic implications of these technologies, even if we don't grasp the full technologies. Lord knows AI is not my area of expertise, but the briefing that Scott is going to provide will give us a very good idea of where AI is going, what we should know about it, and it is important to the work that we do. So please tune in and actually tell other folks in your councils who don't always tune in for legislative affairs briefings that this is one they probably want to check out and pay attention to. Then in October, Fourth Tuesday in October, we will have a briefing from Commander Lex Walker, who is commander of the Navy Recruiting Command, to talk to us about some of the challenges in recruiting right now and what the Navy is doing to address those challenges. Once again, I know that's a topic that is of interest to a lot of folks on this call and a lot of other folks throughout the Navy League. So once again, let folks know if they're usually not on the Legislative Affairs call, they probably want to tune in for that one. Those are all the items that we had on the agenda. So I will open it up now for questions. I see Sinclair Harris right off the bat. Sink, go ahead.
So first thing is a warning. If you're going to listen to Scott Son talk about AI, make sure you have a stiff drink handy. It's going to be a scary, scary show. I mean, you think you may have seen Scary with Terminator or this new movie coming out, Creator. You ain't heard nothing yet. He's going to scare the bejesus out of you. But seriously, it's going to be a great brief, and it's an important brief because, you know, just to address as many as we can, of the issues with Navy recruiting. And I talked to Lex Walker just yesterday. Right now, he thinks we're going to be 7,000 people short for the Navy. Army is not going to make goal by some 9,000. That was in the news. The Air Force has got some horrendous number. The Marine Corps may make goal, but, you know, it's hard to say if really they actually did or not. But there's a lot of challenges out there, and the demographics of our nation don't help. People having less kids, there's lower propensity to serve. All these things have been going on for decades. So I think it's important to come listen to both those lectures because they really are very much connected. AI is part of the answer as to some of it, or as much of it as we can make. Robotics, unmanned systems, and then for Lex, this is a call to action. You start finding the kids that are in good shape and, you know, haven't had too many drugs and, you know, can pass a PRT, a physical readiness test, you know, 3 times out of 5. You know, we need to get those kids going into the military or into the shipbuilding industry. If you've noticed, if watching any of the sports this weekend, there have been a number of commercials about recruiting people to build submarines, okay? And that's because they got a huge shortage as well. So whether they want to be in uniform or not in uniform, there's important work to do in the maritime sphere, and we need to get more of our younger people involved. Otherwise, you're going to be recalling old sailors like me, and that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'm going to pass those 2 things on over.
Well, so I think a lot of folks share Sink's passion for getting more of our population, more of our young people involved in either military service or, again, some of these very, very important skilled occupations such as shipbuilding and working on our nuclear submarines and things like that. So again, if you're interested in that or you know some other folks that are interested, please tune in October. Again, that's the 4th Tuesday in October when we do the recruiting training. And then, of course, next Tuesday will be Scott's AI presentation. Any other questions or comments? Or actually, Sada, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't know. Sada, of course, is our National Vice President for Legislative Affairs. Just in case you had any updates or anything you wanted to mention, Sada, I wanted to give you a moment.
No, not much else. You know, I do want to give a thank you to Luke and also a shout out to the communications team for doing this full court press on the Coast Guard bill. I'll tell you something. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with the shutdown. As you guys, I'm sorry I missed the first half of the call. I was on a panel earlier that made me a little bit late, but the appropriations defense bill got shut down in the House and went to a floor vote, which doesn't look good. I was talking to a staffer and they estimate maybe he said that what they're hearing is maybe a 3-week shutdown up on the Hill. So it's really critical that we get these things passed to make sure our members of the military are paid and they're not working without any pay. So it really is kind of all hands on deck. And please forgive all the emails you will be getting from Luke and from Mike and Townie and the rest of leadership to really make sure all of the Navy League members are pulling in the same direction to help make sure that that happens. It doesn't look good in terms of a shutdown versus not a shutdown. So we'll stand by and see what happens. But that's when the Navy League's advocacy is really critical.
Thank you for that, Sada. And getting lots of emails from me is nothing new to anybody, but this time it actually matters. This time it's something important. It's not the random emails that I send you. So pay attention this time when you see the emails from my account. Scott Sund, I think you were next.
Yeah, I just wanted to pass on to the group. I think some people heard in the news yesterday that one of my representatives that I work with, Representative Jennifer Wexton, she's not going to make it. She's not going to try to come back again after this term. She's got Parkinson's and apparently a very aggressive form of it. And so she's going to hold on until the end of her term, or at least that's her plan. So she's a Democrat from the 10th district. And she actually is on the Appropriations Committee, and she's also on the Budget Committee. So she's only going to be here for the end of her term, and that'll be it for her. So there may be something, Luke, in this term of how many have we started to hear about people who are not planning to come back to Congress, because we know Mitt Romney's not coming back, and I know she's not coming back, and I think there's a few others that are planning not to come back. There may be some big gaps here in some of the more important committees that we monitor all the time. Or that's all I have.
That's a really good point, and I will be tracking that. And in fact, Sasha, I know you're still on the call. That's something, if you don't mind, take a note. We'll be tracking some of the retirements and departures. We'll put together a list and update that list as it moves forward to identify who plans on not seeking re-election for whatever reason that might be, and what committees they sit on. So great point, Scott. I don't have all the names right now, but I will put together a list so that everyone's aware of that. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, the committee that John Kaskin was talking about, that study group, that's not the study group that we've been trying to get before Congress, right? That's a separate study group.
In terms of the National Maritime Transportation Strategy, that is the group that will be compiling that report. So yes, that is very much what we have been trying to push for quite some time. Now, as John mentioned, it's going to be a question once that report is released. Is Congress willing to abide by the recommendations, come up with the money that is necessary for some of these programs and things of that nature? So that will very much inform some of our future advocacy pushes. But yes, okay. That is what we were pushing for. And John Kaskin, correct me if I got anything incorrect.
Well, the study is supposed to provide input to the leaderships of the departments to actually put a maritime strategy together. So basically, there are options for them to consider, and maybe they'll make recommendations on which ones to take. But then the strategy itself is supposed to be written by the administration. So we got one more step, but the study itself will be made public. So Congress will have something to work with, which they can use in case the administration does what they did before, which is basically OMB through whatever product that was produced by the administration and put it into the trash can until the Government Accountability Office caught them doing it, and then they commissioned the Committee for the Maritime Transportation System to put the study together, which I said that was a nothing burger that got Congress so upset that they ended up passing this legislation. So unfortunately, this is a torturous process, but at least there will be a study that will analyze the problem and make recommendations, which if the administration doesn't do anything with it, Congress could.
Okay, good. So we got money for the study.
MARAD, as I said, has so many people that billets that they couldn't fill that they were able to reprogram money that pay for salaries to pay for the studies.
Thank you,
That's
John.
why I'm saying that anybody wants to work in Washington, D.C. or can convince them to work remotely that has any understanding of the maritime industry, there are openings at MARAD. I think
we have a volunteer. Bill wants to work at MARAD.
All set to go. My bags are packed, as they say.
Okay. Marilyn, you had a question?
Oh, no, just a comment to reflect on what Chairman Offit encouraged us to do. And as region presidents, if you are, I did within the last 2 weeks reach out to my region president and as well as our area presidents to send out an all points bulletin to all the council members in the Pacific Central region to go online. And some of them don't have quorum, so they wouldn't know how to get to the professionally prepared message we have for our representatives. But I found that by going to NavyLeague.org, clicking on advocate for our mission, that 2693 is high on the list. And then all you have to do is go right there and put in your profile and send it. So
That is
I mean, we can
fantastic.
potentially make a dent that way. And being within the Pacific Central region, we are Coast Guard Pacific headquarters here as well. I don't know
Yes,
what we can do to influence all the active duty service members to reach out to their friends and family, but I'm working on it. And
Marilyn,
along the lines of yeah.
I was going to say, we
Along-
know that when you get a goal in mind, there is no stopping you. So we have no doubt that you are going 100 miles an hour out there on this initiative. And thank you for that. We appreciate it. I didn't mean to interrupt you. We're going to say something else?
Oh, and to follow on to what SYNC was encouraging us to do, I recently had a conversation with a gentleman who is part of the leadership to a historic vessel in the Bay Area. As you may know, we're home to major ports here, the Port of Oakland, the Port of San Francisco, the Port of Richmond, and there's plenty of the maritime universe right here in my region. So what we are working on is a workforce development program. Given that he has mentioned to me that the historic ship, which he is on the board serving to operate and manage, is going to receive a grant for that specific purpose. It'll be an avenue to bring to young people, to youth, an introduction and exposure to all the maritime opportunities that they could avail themselves to in the Bay Area. And that could be anything from maintenance to building to shipping, cargo, you name it. There's so much of that right here.
I'm going to tell you, Marilyn, that is such a tremendous initiative. These workforce development programs are invaluable because as many folks on this call know, there are these good, skilled jobs. They pay well. They are absolutely critical to our national security, but a lot of folks either are not introduced to them or they are not given the proper pipeline to get trained, to get ready to go into those careers. So this type of workforce development program, I have no doubt will make a big impact out there. And that's very, very exciting. Marilyn, please keep us updated on that because I think that's fascinating.
And with your permission, this individual that I'm speaking with, I would like to invite him to attend our committee meeting speaker session.
Yes, yes, of course, that would be fantastic.
I'm going to make him a Navy League member.
Okay, well, we know you will, Marilyn. Marilyn does not take no for an answer. Send me an email, Marilyn, and let's talk a little bit about maybe a speaking opportunity or something. That'd be fantastic.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay.
This man Marilyn's referring to is the great grandson of President Roosevelt.
Really?
That's who I'm speaking with.
Wow. Well, he has to be a member. I mean, you know, his great grandfather helped found the organization. All right. Yeah. No. Tell him there's no option here. He has to join.
His grandfather's cousin, Theodore.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is really fascinating. Wow. Okay. Very cool.
Right.
So Marilyn and Bill are hobnobbing with the president's kids out there on the West Coast.
We'll get the Roosevelt Foundation. That's right.
Okay. Guys, any other questions or comments before we sign off for today? If not, I look forward to seeing all of you next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, to hear from Scott Sund. You do not need to have a stiff drink necessarily. SYNC recommends it, but that's not Navy League policy. So everyone have a great rest of your week. Please keep focused on that Coast Guard pay parity bill. Let's get that across the finish line, and I will talk with all of you soon. And Marilyn, send me that email when you get a chance.
Bye, Luke.
Take care, everyone. Take care, Coach
Thank you.
Susan. Bye-bye.
Good seeing you, everyone.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye, John.
Oh, Chris, if you're still there's a lot of job openings at MARAD. Give it a try.
I contacted that one person that you mentioned before. No positive feedback yet.
Well, they certainly have a lot of billets open, so you just have to see if you can find a marriage.
All right, sounds good. I'll keep at it. Thanks, John.
It's working for the government as a civilian takes time and patience. It's one of the reasons why there's so many vacancies, because if somebody has got talent and they've got other job openings, usually the commercial folks will pick them up faster than the government ever will. It's just tedious. I graduated in May from graduate school in '79, and I wasn't brought aboard to the MSc until September.
It's a couple months, huh?
And that was in the good old days. So just have some patience.
Sounds good. I'll see you again soon. All right, John?
Cheers. All right, bye.
Together it lets God a ray of sunlight that beams into